Welcome to the Property Funder podcast. I'm your host, Michael Dean. This podcast has brought me the chance to speak with remarkable industry figures. In this episode, we're reflecting on standout moments from the past few months. So stay tuned for some distilled wisdom and knowledge from the world of property and finance. Let's dive in. What would be your advice to your younger self? When you had to retake your O-levels, if you were to give yourself some self-talk, knowing what you do now, what would be your advice to your younger self?
I actually think about that from time to time, and I should have applied myself and think beyond here. Because when I started to do something I enjoyed doing, I was much more engrossed in it. It was look under the bonnet, get involved. It is all in the detail. You can't sell a product unless you're invested in it and you really enjoy it. And those people who enjoy it are not doing a job. It's a vocation. And the amount of people I meet, particularly the more youthful people, or younger than me, that's not difficult, right? It's almost like it's a job. It's not. Think of it as your own business. So all your employees, they're either Zahir or Michael when they go out. I don't know if the ladies would agree with that.
Michaela.
Michaela, yeah. And enjoy it. And, I was the FP show. I was walking from one stand to another. And a lot of people are very elevated. They were enjoying it, and you could see they were invested in their product. They believed in it. I can't sell something I don't agree with. I don't enjoy. But other people, it was like, oh, sorry, I've come to your stand. It's like they should have had a big cross sign, do not approach. And honestly, there was one of them.
So there's arms folded
arms folded, looking somewhere else, hiding behind the mobile as people do. Again, you're here for a day to present your business, and that business earns you a salary, maybe even bonuses. You should be out pushing it. You've got a good group of people. Sophie's my conduit. Love her to pieces. Personality, and she knows her onions.
She does.
And that's a very good. We could have Sophie multiplied in every lender. It would be a real pleasure in their industry. Some people, they hide from you, going, do you not want my business? You might get it, you might not, but unless you've got to be in it to win it. So there's my takeaway. Enjoy what you do. Find a reason to like it. And if you don't, find something else to do. Because life is quite short. I still remember being 25 and I'm going, that was more than 25 years ago. But it's a good place.
Yeah, the question I regularly ask the guests that come onto the podcast is, what would you tell your younger self, knowing what you know now? If I was going to pick an age that you might advise yourself at, the most natural one would be, on your 16th birthday when you're about to join the army. Like, if you knew what you know now, then what would you tell yourself?
It's probably to go and sell drugs.
We're keeping that.
Okay. It's a real difficult one because the army is a real proud part of my life, but it's made me the obsessive individual that I am, which sometimes gives you sleepless nights, This morning I set off to Michael's house to get the train, and I got 8 miles in and drove back to see if I'd locked the door. So that lives with me all these years later. I would study as hard as I could. I don't think I'd enter further education, if I'm honest. I'd start to earn as early as I could. I'd push a family off till mid-20s until you've got something behind you, so you're not both having to go to work to pay for nursery fees and all the rest of it. I would go for the best well-paid position, and I'd just spend the first 5 or 10 years just gathering the skills to do it yourself, and drain the companies you work for the information and for the experience, and then just go and do it yourself.
What advice would you give to your 16-year-old self, knowing what you do now and why?
Yeah, it's a great question, and my sixth book that I wrote was actually called Advice to Your Younger Self. And I didn't feel qualified to write the book myself. So I reached out to 49 other people that I know, like, and trust, and asked every one of them to, given what you know now, given all of your life experiences, take yourself back to when you were mid-teenage years. What advice would you give your younger self? And for me, it would be, don't follow everybody else. Find something that you're passionate about, where just it absolutely radiates and oozes out of every pore. And create your life around your passion. I had some phenomenal experiences in corporate life. I don't regret a moment of it, but I wasn't exactly following my passion, my calling. I think each and every one of those experiences has defined the man I am today. But number one is find something you're absolutely passionate about and turn it into a business opportunity, turn it into a way to monetize, but have the confidence to make a start.
Just picking up what you just said, would you have left corporate life sooner if you could turn the clock back?
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely, I would. I mentioned in the first podcast that we did the sliding doors moments. I've had a few sliding doors moments, opportunities where, could I have taken a business public? Could I have acquired that business? Could I have acquired a portfolio of properties? There's been a number of times there, and I don't regret those decisions, but there have been certain points where I probably could have exited. I think I stayed realistically probably 5 years too long in corporate life. I knew the end was coming. And I suppose in me, there was a little bit of lack of confidence myself in terms of, 20 years, I don't know what's on the outside. So, I've been through some of the hardship and self-doubt myself and pulled through, and I'd like to think I can give that guidance and support to people that there is other opportunity out there that they will absolutely relish and thrive.
Even though you might have been working 60, 70 hour, maybe 80 hour weeks in those final years of the corporate life, you talk about that most people operating at that 15, 20% comfort zone. Do you think you were operating in that comfort zone yourself in that sort of 08 to 14 period?
Yeah, I do, to be honest. And that was before probably I was operating at 30 or 40%. But there's always a different type of thinking. I think back to the type of thinking of David McCourt. He wasn't trying to get large contracts. He was trying to transform the way people communicate around the world. I mean, that's pretty lofty thinking. But I probably got caught up in the employee routine, I think if I'd probably had the courage when I first left corporate life in 2001, if I hadn't have started with Mighty and created the new business, if at that point I'd decided to take all my seasoned business practitioner knowledge and started my own business then, I think I would have probably exited that business, sold it, and probably gone down more the PE route.
Yeah,
I think that's probably where my life would have gone. But it's life's rich tapestry, isn't it?
Yeah. Well, I don't think we want to have. I don't think you seem to be someone who lives life with much regret anyway. But I sort of get the sense that you're trying to make up for lost time now in some ways. As an entrepreneur, this is what advice would you give to your younger self? And I'm going to pick when you're in the post room at Young and Rubicon. So what would you have told your younger self and why?
So I would say be authentic. Don't try and be someone you're not. And I guess throughout your career as you grow, you go through periods where you try and be something else. And that never ends well. So always try and just always be true to yourself. You are who you are. You're a beautiful, brilliant, strange, weird, type of person, whatever your personality is. Embrace it and be true to yourself, because people see authenticity, and that's the greatest thing that people see. If you are true to yourself, then you'll go a long way. If you look at others and go, I just want to be like them, I'm going to spend my life trying to be them, you'll never be happy, because you will never be them. And I think that's part of what I've learned, and part of what I'm still trying to learn, is just be happy in yourself. And that's really important.
Absolutely. Well, live your life, not someone else's life. That's a great mantra to live by. If you were to give one piece of advice to a relatively new broker to the sector, what would
another job? The truth hurts, but it is the truth.
That's going on Instagram.
Well, I mean, look, it's about plausibility. I think people forget, when you're buying a car, it might be 15, 20, 50, 100 grand, sometimes more. When you're buying property, it doesn't start there. It starts up here. So you're investing not only hard cash and your technical skills, you're also betting against the vagaries of the market. If you're a young broker, there's not a lot of that around. So what are you actually bringing to the table? I've got grey hair and matter, and I've probably forgotten more than I remember. And frankly, I'm only as good as what I did in the last 5 or 10 years, what I did 20 years ago. The world moves on. Yeah. So hedge your bets. It's like you're going to be an actor. You're going to be out of a job more often than you're not. So you're going to have skills. So think about something else, because broking can come in and go out too. You might have to let go of people, and they're relying on a salary and their payroll. Unfortunately, I've mentored a couple of people. One of my clients, his son was out of CAS. I gave him a year. One of my mates, I needed some support, but he was never going to work for me full time. It was a starter. He's now doing his accountancy at Deloitte's. I don't want that responsibility anymore. I manage people, albeit I was an employee of a bigger firm. I just keep myself to myself, get under the radar. I enjoy what I do with the people I do, and I'll happily educate people in some shape or form, but I don't have to employ them. But what I do is work with other people in the sector. So I don't do regulated and singular buy-to-let. I work with a well-known firm that makes me look good because they do a good job with the clients. So I'm doing it all the time. People from the trade and asset finance world, they don't really do the regulated, the property piece, so they come to me. I mean, look, asset-based lending, it really should be asset-based lending, excluding property. It's like the stock market, Europe ex UK. That gives me opportunity. But I give and reciprocate. So whilst we're not in each other's pockets, like if I was working as for a packager, I'm much more nimble. I can work from home. I've got a couple of offices, IOD, for example. And I kind of like it. It's there's no exit for me, but I just I do what I want when I want, and people buy into me. That works for me. The minute you start employing people, you do dilute the situation. I'm sure the brand Avamore. Would I like to run a big package and have lots of people? And sometimes I do, but in the same way as sometimes I think I should go back to lending. Every now and again, someone will ring me up and say, "Phil, do you fancy going lending?" And I'm going.
This podcast is sponsored by Avamore Capital. Avamore Capital is a development and bridging lender based in London, but lending all over England and Wales, lending on projects from £250,000 all the way up to £25 million on bridging, development, refurb, and part complete developments. Please visit www.avamorecapital.com to find out more. If you were to kind of give some self-talk to your younger self, I'm going to say probably, when you're finishing uni, just before maybe you come to the UK, like what would you say to knowing what you know now, what would you say to yourself and why?
Have kids younger.
Okay.
One of the most fulfilling things I've done in my life was to have children. And I think the idea that children are a burden that is sort of, propagated throughout society these days is something I came to learn is absolute nonsense. It's no greater joy, and it's given me purpose, it's given me structure. It's, you know, I would have had children a lot younger, and more maybe. But it's surprising how big a part of you that becomes. Being a parent, being a father, you know, fulfilling that role, it just makes you become a grown-up, I think.
Yeah, I can relate to that. How do you square being a parent with, you know, with the drive that you've got personally? You know, I don't think you're put it this way. I wouldn't expect that the first thing I'm going to speak to you about the next time I see you is asking what you've been watching on Netflix. I guess you've got bigger fish to fry than that. But how do you reconcile being a parent, being so driven yourself, and then seeing that in your own children, and also because ultimately it's very, you know, a lot of the time you either have that natural drive or you don't, and if you try and force that drive into your children, at least in my own experience, it can be quite damaging to the relationship with your children, or even with your spouse, for example.
Yeah.
How do you reconcile that? How do you apply the techniques that you've made so successful as a business person to being a parent?
Yeah, it's a great point. And like, if there was a fantastic book about parenting, I never read it, and I've made as many mistakes as anybody. I'm naturally, as I said, really positive, and I've tried to drive my children sometimes a little bit too hard, and they just turn around and go the other way. I learned very quickly as a parent that show them by demonstration, not tell them what to do. They'll never remember what you said, but they'll always remember what you chose to do, and the manner which you chose to do it. But I've always wanted my kids to have a loving childhood. I want them to find a passion in something. My mum, bless her, she's got stage 4 dementia at the moment, which is, an incredibly sad thing for anybody to witness a family member to go through. But my mum always said to me as a youngster, she said, whatever you do in life, have a passion in something. Doesn't matter what it is, but find a passion in something. And that's what I've always tried to instill in my kids. Find that absolute passion. Now, you could have a passion that lasts for 5 years. You could have a passion that lasts for 50 years. But just find a passion in something. Immerse your very soul in it. Enjoy it. And that's all I've ever asked my children to seek. Seek that passion. My eldest son, he's in Abu Dhabi and Dubai. He's an academy coach for one of the top Premiership teams out there, and he's just followed his dream. He just loves sports, loves football. And hopefully the other kids, as they come into adult life, they'll follow that path as well. But I haven't always had that balance right. My wife, she's a very caring woman, but she also is very driven as well, and very stubborn. So ultramarathon running was a great opportunity for her as well. So
to get you out of the house.
We've both done 60, 70 mile runs together. Yeah,
wow.
Yeah. I think she just wanted me to see me in pain, to be honest. But that's all I can put it down to. But that's it's great when you find a connection. We had to revisit. I wouldn't say revisit the marriage. That sounds a bit dramatic, but I'm working 60, 70, 80 hours a week in corporate life, and then I give up the day job, and I'm now an entrepreneur based at home, backing talent. I'm on the phone, and Sharon's got her friends around. I'm saying, keep noise down. I'm just on the phone. Just the whole work life balance and dynamic changed, and we had to change. In fact, one thing I did, I did a psychometric test on myself. I've used psychometric tests for employing people for donkey's years, but actually I'd never done one myself. So when I left corporate life, I decided, well, for myself and some of my new business partners, we'd do one and we'd compare the results. Seeing how, gaps in my armory, things that I maybe wasn't good at or didn't share the passion, and they did, some natural fits there. And I found this so absorbing that one day in the evening, I had a chat with Sharon and said, we're life partners, but we can be great business partners as well. It was probably a step too far to suggest to my wife that she might do a psychometric test as well. I wouldn't advise anybody to do that. That's got suspension of privileges written all over it, hasn't it?
You're doing well if you just got suspension of privileges. Yeah, I think that's a game over moment for some people's relationships, isn't it?
Yeah. So I've made all the mistakes in the world there is to make, but I'd like to think I don't make the same mistake twice.
No, quite. What advice would you give to your younger self, and why, knowing what you do now?
I would say network, because you never know who is going to be in your network that is going to, be useful and helpful to you.
Yeah.
And the other thing is always do the right thing, even when no one's watching.
I like that.
Yeah.
I really like that.
Yeah.
I think so much of a lot of what people do is performative.
Yeah.
And we would talk about LinkedIn, but there's that kind of look at me, and it's that sort of, is that really you, or is that just you on social media?
Yeah.
And for me, it's I still struggle with authenticity, right?
Yeah.
And I think that maxim that you say, do it even when no one's do it even though no one's watching.
Yeah.
Love that. Absolutely love that.
I do have a final one, actually.
Go on.
I think just never be afraid to admit where you just don't know something.
Yeah.
I think too often people try and pretend that they know everything, or pretend that, but actually it's much better to just go, look, sorry, I don't know. Tell me about that, or ask more questions. And people respect you, and you can build rapport much quicker with people when you tell them what you don't know, rather than pretending that you know literally everything.
I love that.
No one knows everything.
I love that. I definitely have been times in my life where I've tried to blag it and I've been found out horribly.
Yeah.
So whereas I think that there is, I agree with you. When you say you don't know something, or or you sort of say to someone, I don't quite get this, can you explain it to me, like I'm a 10-year-old? People love to feel important, and giving someone a platform to sort of explain something to you with a degree of authority. I think sometimes people don't realize how actually that's a real strength to be able to invite someone to do that, rather than if you just go there and give off the impression like you understand when you haven't got the foggiest. It's like, no, I love that. I guess if you were to look back at, you can choose the age, whether it's 16, 18, 21, but if you were to give yourself some advice, knowing what you do now, when you were, 21, what would you say to yourself, and why?
I think I'd tell myself to start earlier. I think you always think that, I could learn more, before I go out on my own, or maybe I'm not ready to do this yet. But I think what you very, very quickly find out is I felt like a very young entrepreneur at one stage when I started a business. Before, I even start to feel like I'm not that younger entrepreneur now, or I'm not that young a business owner now. And, what could have been if I started earlier? And I've only learned what I've learned through experience of getting things wrong. And so getting on with it and doing it and working out how to fail, how to get things wrong, I think is, a great thing. Would I have gone to university looking back at it? No. Obviously, that took me down a path which takes me to where I am today. So it's hard to, totally rule it out as a waste of time or what have you. But I think it would just be to believe in yourself and get on with things sooner.
Yeah.
And don't wait.
No, that's great advice. Great advice. Yeah. I think a lot of people would look at themselves and go, yeah, what am I waiting for?
Yeah.
What advice would you give to your, maybe let's say your 16-year-old self, and why?
Probably one of the things I don't do, one of the things I try and do in meetings, I know I have an awful lot of verbal diarrhea, is listen more than you speak. You know, there's a reason you've got 2 ears and 1 mouth. Listening is really, really important, listening to what the client wants and the advice that you get. There is definitely no substitute for hard work as far as I'm concerned. Unless you're a genius and you get some bright idea that nobody else has, I don't think there's any substitute for hard work. And try not to bullshit a bullshitter, because, you know, they're generally, if you're dealing with someone older than you, they're more experienced than you. But you never know what life's going to throw at you. You never know what path's going to take you, and what's going on globally at the moment has a massive impact on the economy. So I think if you work hard and you're honest with people, and if there's a problem you tell them quickly, then you're always going to have a chance to succeed.
If you were to give some self-talk to your younger self, let's say, you know, 16, 17, 18 perhaps, what would you say to yourself and why? Why don't you start, Ben?
Yeah, so I would, and this isn't advice to anyone out there, but I probably wouldn't go to uni. Like, I feel like it was really good fun. But fundamentally, from an entrepreneurship perspective, I feel like I could have been further ahead than I am now had I just taken the leap and gone down the route that I sort of knew I was always destined for, but felt like, you know, nowadays, you know, you got to go to uni, you got to get your degree, blah, blah, blah. And yeah, I feel like I'm behind. Maybe it's just the way that I think, but I'm like, you know, I sort of feel like I wasted those years and I could have been further ahead than I am now if I didn't do that. So yeah, that's not advice to anyone. That's just, you know, how I feel like, you know, don't feel pressured into doing it if you feel like there's another avenue for you. And I think the way that university fees are nowadays, it's, you know, it's expensive, and you're going to be paying that off for a long, long time. When if you've got that entrepreneurial spirit and, you know, you always know that you're going down that route at some point, then, you know, why not start yesterday?
What about you, Jack?
I'd probably say whatever level you're at, invest heavily in having 1 or 2 and maybe even more mentors. I feel that there was a lot of time that, you know, we were mentoring each other, and we probably could have got an easier break and a lot more support and ideas and creativity and vision and reflection and growth with reaching out more, investing in more in that. And I feel that it's a bit of a taboo to just actually go, I know nothing about this, someone help me, and looking out for, you know, help. And that's one of the reasons we run our own channel, to give that help back, you know, at the forefront. So definitely go in a little bit heavier with the mentorship earlier and invest more time and efforts into that, because it pays dividends and exponentially it grows you as a person, you know, early on in the journey.
What bit of advice or self-talk would you give your younger self, knowing what you do now?
I would say, you know, cut your teeth quicker. Get in front of more clients quicker. I spent a large proportion of my early years, as I said to you before, sitting there twiddling my thumbs because I didn't have people to speak to. I'd picked the wrong choice of place to work. I had too much confidence. I should have, you know, sucked up my pride, gone and found, you know, an estate agent to work for probably, and sit in the back and just smash through, you know, loads and loads and loads of work and really just cut my teeth and really, you know, expand my knowledge and gain experience a lot quicker. And I think I would have been further down the line. But yeah, apart from that, look, I'm happy where I am. So any change, any little whispers I would have put in that little boy's ear could mean that I'm not where I am. So, you know, on that side of things, I probably wouldn't say anything. But if I had to, that's probably what I'd say.
Yeah, love it. If you were to give yourself, your younger self, some self-talk, knowing what you do now, what would you advise yourself and why?
I would say probably to not sweat the small stuff so much. I think I've definitely been guilty of that over the years, and you can waste a hell of a lot of energy worrying about things that don't actually really move it in either direction. And I'm quite a detailed person, so sometimes I think going too far into the weeds can be detrimental to growth in some ways. So I think there's a balance to be had for sure, because I think as I've said before, having some technical knowledge is obviously important, but I do think having the ability to not sweat the small stuff would be something I'd have liked to have had over the years.
Nice bit of advice, and definitely, I definitely could take that on board myself, and I certainly know other friends and colleagues in the industry would definitely benefit from that advice as well. Thank you for watching and listening to the Property Funder podcast. You can find me on the internet at property_funder, and please remember to like and subscribe. See you on the next one. Thanks, and bye-bye.